Hi, everybody. Welcome back to this Larison Media podcast series on sales, where we are diving deep into the art and science of closing sales in the home service industry. As a marketing agency, we know that generating leads is just the beginning. If there's no one there to close that deal, these leads mean nothing. That's why we're bringing you insights from the top sales professionals in the industry, breaking down what it takes to turn opportunities into revenue, revenue into profit, profit into freedom, and freedom into impact. Let's get into today's conversation. Today, we have a special guest, Joshua Latimer. He is a powerhouse in the home service and small business world. He went from scrubbing windows to scaling and selling seven-figure businesses, then turned his passion into automation, into helping other entrepreneurs escape the grind. He's a founder of Automate, Grow, and Sell, a co-founder of SendGem. He's also an avid chess player and a master at building systems that create freedom for business owners. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about the nerdy, beautiful world of sales.
Yeah. Well, I like how you call it nerdy because like sales really kind of does get the sexy label, most of the time. But like in the reality, it is nerdy. It is hard. It is data driven at times and it can be nerdy. I like how you call it that. It's good.
Well, in your intro, you mentioned the phrase art and science. I think success in business is part art and it's part science. We got to know the math and the numbers and the data. But then there's this whole other world of nuance. If I interviewed 10 small business owners and said, "Are you doing a pretty good job at sales?" Most of them would say yes. But if you looked under the hood at what they're doing, the nuance, the way they answer the phone, the voice inflection, the pacing, the tonality, the intonation, like there's so much depth in every little part of the process that can be improved. People just aren't aware of it, or they're just stressed out. They're overworked. They're underpaid. they're, and so
Yeah.
they're moving too fast, and they can't slow down and focus on the art part of sales.
You're 100% right. I mean, I use that art and science a lot. Obviously, when talking about marketing, I think you have like the creative side of marketing. Marketing is that classic like left brain, right brain to me, right? You have that creative side, and then you have that data side. And a lot of times, you have people that are great at one but not the other. And I really think to do marketing, and we're going to talk about sales today too. But to do marketing really well, you have to have both. It's not a 50-50, it's 100-100. So, okay, awesome. I am excited for this conversation. But first of all, like, what have you been up to? What's going on in the world of Joshua Latimer?
Well, we have 5 kids, 2 dogs. We spend half of the time in Texas. I have a media studio and a software company in the Dallas area. And then the other half in northern Michigan. I'm on Starlink right now. So praying Elon's internet holds strong for us in the
Doing
middle
good
of
so
nowhere.
far.
So that's what we do. I have a couple software companies. What we mainly do these days is help local business owners create more income by starting paid accountability groups or getting into coaching, things like that. I think too with sales, local or home service business owners, usually they didn't get into business because they're good at sales. It's just this
Mhm.
kind of rude awakening of, oh crap, I got to get good at marketing and sales. But usually they were technically competent at whatever the thing is that their business does. And that's how it starts. And so they have a technician's mindset in the beginning, oftentimes.
Mm.
And that's not bad. They provide really, really good work. And because they're so good, they start growing. And then when they have more mouths to feed, they have to keep it growing. And then they,
Mm.
stumble across someone like you that can make it rain leads for them. But it just doesn't work right. I mean, they're not charging high enough prices. They don't understand their numbers. They don't have any choreography. I also come from the internet marketing world. I was mentored for many years by Russell Brunson, and
Mm.
local business owners don't typically understand the difference between front end and back end, or an ascension ladder, a value ladder, things like that. It's not hard to learn it. It's just they're technically focused instead of nuance and art and marketing focus. One of my sayings is everything is marketing and marketing is everything.
Mhm.
Marketing doesn't mean giving Mark Zuckerberg money. Marketing is literally the way you parent your children is marketing. The way you speak to yourself is a form of marketing. We know that dating, Tinder, that's definitely marketing, right? Everything is marketing from the way you answer the phone to the thickness of your literature to the way you choreograph, the way you unpack value for the client. It's not magic, it's learnable skills. But I think we get so focused and fixated on the technical side of the business that we neglect the stuff that makes us all the money.
Mm. That's so true. And you just got me really excited. Like the questions I have today, we're going to get into some deep stuff about sales. I do want to, before we dive in deep, which we're going to, Um, I want to know a little bit about you. This conversation's about sales today. I want to know, can you remember the first thing you ever sold?
Mm,
And this might have been like
let me
13-year-old Josh, running
right.
around. But like, do you remember like the first thing you personally sold to somebody?
First thing I personally sold was lawn mowing service to my neighbors, which
Hmm.
is pretty common story, I think. But I'd go
That
around
was
and knock
mine
on the
as
doors.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also pull weeds. I would do whatever they wanted me to do to make $5 or whatever. There was this
Hmm.
80-year-old guy named Gordon that lived just down and across the street from us, and he was blind as a bat, nicest guy, and he would pay me $20 to mow his lawn, and I would use his old riding lawnmower that had no hood on it, and it was rusty and it was a piece of junk, and I would mow, and he'd open his wallet, and it always meant a lot to me because he would let me pull out the $20 bill. And again, he couldn't see. He would listen to Detroit
Yeah.
Tigers baseball really loud, but he trusted me because he had
Nice.
hundreds and fifties and twenties and tens. And I would take out my 20. And that was a big deal, actually, when you're, 12 years old, to make some money on your own, to knock on a door and make it
Hmm.
close a deal, I guess.
That was the same thing. That was me as well. I lived in a neighborhood growing up, and I would walk around and putting my charm on like the ladies of the neighborhood, the women owners of the homes, and I would mow yards. So you're right. That's a pretty common story. Okay. Do you now the next question I want to know, and this is interesting too. Do you have a sale that you're most proud of? This one's a little deeper, maybe.
Probably
Yeah.
the first time I got my first $100,000 private consulting client.
Mm,
And I don't really do a lot of private consulting, but it just happens. It's not my core business. And I had kept raising the price and raising the price and raising the price. And finally it got to this level where it was like, if you want to talk to me once a week, it's $100,000. And the person said yes. And the reason that was important to me is because I grew up pretty poor. And my wife and I lived in a trailer park when we first got married. And it's not about the money. It's about, and that sounds really cliche. I was very happy to get the money. Let me be really clear.
yeah.
But it was validation for all of the value that I can create for the work that I put in for almost 20 years, building and selling companies and all these things. And thinking of where we started, I was a pizza delivery driver living in a trailer park to, having, well, many people have hired me for 100,000 or more since, but that first one it was wild. It kind of broke my
Mm.
own limiting belief, it just happened. So, um, kind of feels weird saying that, but that's the truth.
I hear that, and I've been a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan most of my career, and he has a similar story when it comes to his speaking engagements. And he kept saying, "Well, I would charge this," and they would say yes really quickly. And like the thing I learned from that is I need to charge more. If they're answering quickly, that probably means you should be charging a little bit more. Love that. All right, so let's get into it. Um, you and I were talking about a little bit before we started the show, and it might come off weird to people that are either watching this or listening to this that a marketing agency is taking the time to create intentional content around the topic of sales and not just marketing. But at the same time, they are in very similar worlds in the year that we're living in. And a lot of times you said either the salespeople say the leads are weak or the marketing people say the salespeople aren't good enough at selling. And you're so true. That's that common, like just always butting heads. So I thought it'd be a good idea. Like as a marketing company, we truly believe sales is the last, adventure in that marketing cycle. We should be talking about these things, and I want to be able to help provide as much value to our clients as well as just all the other, small businesses across the country, that sales is a part of this marketing cycle and what can we learn about it. But I want to know from you, what is your sales philosophy? Maybe what are some things that you might look at differently when it comes to sales than other people in the home service world?
I think I'm pretty contrarian with a lot of this stuff. Um, I believe sales and marketing are super integrated because, again, like I said
Hmm.
before, everything is marketing, marketing is everything. And it sounds like it's semantics, but let me break it down for you. So, we never have to convince anybody to do anything. Convincing is not sales, persuading is sales. And persuading and convincing are not the same thing. Persuading and manipulating are not the same thing. You know, a baby crying technically is a form of manipulation. It makes a loud noise and gets a result. It gets fed or it gets changed, right? And persuasion is part of daily life. It's not like some dirty thing. And so for a local home service business, where we should start is thinking about all the low hanging fruit, simple principle based things they can do to close more deals at higher prices. And these are things like price anchoring, having a high ticket decoy offer. There are things like the choreography of what price do you give first and how do you walk it down. There are things like guarantees and bonuses, the way that you create a stack of value. One thing that's really cool for me, because I started with a window cleaning business, but then when I got into software and almost went bankrupt, I had to learn a lot of stuff from people like Russell Brunson and these internet marketers
Mhm.
that all of it applies to home service, but the home service doesn't talk about it. Usually, when I hear sales, the only things people are talking about is how do you overcome objections? What's your, I got to talk to my wife strategy? And it's like, it's like, what are you talking
Mhm.
about? Like, these people want the thing that you have. Let's walk them through a process. Let's create separation in the perceived value of what it's like to talk to us, to interact with us. And let's give them a buffet of options presented in the right order, and then not push ever. You don't need to push, especially in home services. It's one thing to be a cold salesman for like enterprise software. That's really hard. Sales for a cleaning company isn't that hard. Most people don't get to the lead fast enough, so increasing the speed to lead automatically
Mhm.
makes you more money instantly. Giving them packages and choices instead of just a yes or no, give them an either or option, automatically
Mhm.
makes you more money every single time, 100% of the time. It's a principle. If you present your most expensive option first and then walk down to your mid option and walk it down to your lower option, that always, on average, given a big enough time horizon, makes you more money because it's the law of comparison. It's anchoring. It's just human, right? So you don't have to be a genius to do this stuff, but you do have to push pause for 2 seconds and think through how many rings am I answering the phone in? What am I doing to build rapport really
Mhm.
fast? Do I have an elevator pitch on the phone when I call the lead that that creates very great contrast between the other two companies they just called to get a quote, right? Um, Again, creativity, nuance, it's the art part. I think people are bad at the art part of it. And then you see people like Grant Cardone running around in the internet. And these are really bad examples of how to do
Mhm.
sales. It's just nonsense, in my opinion. You don't close people and hammer people. You talk to them and you walk them through a process and you build rapport, uh, provide a great experience. Most companies
Yeah,
just
and
don't do that.
the thing that I took out of that answer, and we see this a lot. Like I said, we've been diving into more of our clients' CRMs and looking at after that lead comes in, what happens. What happens after that? And a lot of times, you're right. We are seeing a lot of home service businesses. They look at that sales process as it's a black and white thing. You want this service. This is how much it costs. Talk us through maybe some practical things, because I know you said a lot of things there about packages, options, and you have 5 kids. I have 2 kids, and that is one thing I've learned as a parent. When you have a stubborn toddler, or in my world, stubborn preteen, um, you can give them options, and that usually still makes them feel like they are in charge of their decision, and that makes a decision come easier. Talk us through what that could look like. You talked about like even like a decoy and things like that.
Yeah.
Practically, what does that look like?
So it can look a little different for each company, but the way to think about it is imagine in your mind the difference between McDonald's and a $500 steakhouse. If you've ever had a meal that costs two, three, four, $500 for you and your wife, it's a nice treat to go, but you'll notice that literally everything is different on a nuance level, right? So like the ambiance is different. The hostess is better somehow, right? They have a dedicated water guy with a towel over his arm that walks around pouring, right? They bring out the meat on these big wood platters and they say things like, you need to secure the Wellington. It's a chef's special tonight. It's a very limited supply, right? There's the languaging is different, the music is different. The food quality is better, but it's not 10 times better. The food
Mhm.
quality is better. It's not 10 times, it might be twice as good, but the price is 10 times better. So for a home service company, it all starts on your customer life cycle at that first point of contact. So whether they submit a form on your website or call your office or email you or whatever, DM you, what exactly happens and how long did it take until it happened? Let's just start there. So speed to lead, allocating resources, having a person that is like hovering, waiting
Mm.
to just talk to people instantly. Because when people are clicking on your marketing, they're in a certain state of mind. And if we don't get them when they're still in that state, they've drifted, they've changed, it's not important anymore. They're doing other things. So
Hmm.
speed is big. And then what's the nuance on the phone? I'll give you a super simple example. If someone would call my office, and if I still had a home service company now, I would answer with high energy and enthusiasm, because enthusiasm alone covers a multitude of sins in sales. Just being warm. The definition of charisma is competence and warmth mixed together. So knowing what you're talking about, but being open and warm. So I'd answer the phone, thank you for calling ABC Service Company. I'm having a great day. Hope you are as well. How can I help you? And then they'd say, oh, yeah, I need to get an estimate for my thing. And I would probably say something to the effect of, oh, that's amazing. Are you a current customer of ours, or will this be your first time using us? The reason I would ask that question is it's an assumptive question. I'm saying, do you already give us money, or is this the first time you're about to give us money? Right? And then they're like, oh, I'm a new
Mm.
customer. And then I'd say, oh, perfect. Would it be okay if I gave you our 15-second elevator pitch on why we're such a weird company, but it's a good thing? Is that okay? Perfect. First of all, we provide an extremely high level of service. Our technicians, this is a career for them, not just a job. Everybody's background checked, certified,
Mm.
non-smoking. Their kids go to school with your kids. They're paid above market rate wages. Because of that, we cost a little bit more than some companies. We think it's a really good trade. Can I get the address you were calling about? That way I can get you all the information. Why would I do that? Well, because it's choreography, it's nuance, it's art. And so
Hmm.
what I'm doing is I'm setting a frame before they even have an objection. And it's happening quick, right? And so when they get a quote from the second guy who calls them back the next day and then drops off a price written on the back of a business card, they're not the same thing. We're not dealing with the
Yeah.
same stuff. So that is what sales is. And I wasn't closing or pushing anybody. I was setting a frame. I was anchoring them that they were a premium luxury service provider. And then, of course, however you do your pricing, all of that can be up leveled by learning how to think like this. Um, whether it's in person or it's on the phone or whatever, packages, anchoring, decoys, we can talk about any of that stuff wherever you want to go next.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing I got from that is you are taking control in that call. If they are calling and they're saying, "Hey, I need a quote," they're in control, right? They're the ones asking, but you taking that second and really giving that elevator pitch, to really make your company stand out. And I've said for a long time, like how you answer the phone or your tone on a phone call is absolutely marketing. So you and I are on the same page there. But you're taking back control, because like as I've been listening back to some of our clients' calls, you're right. I mean, hey, I need a call or a quote, an estimate for cleaning. Can't tell you how many times the next words out of the mouth of that CSR or that salesperson was, all right, how many bedrooms and bathrooms? There's like
Right.
no personal connection. There is no outside of just that business relationship that person is maybe interested in creating. There was nothing outside of that, because then all that becomes is a transaction of services. There's no transaction of relationship, which I think
It
is
it
what
it
you were talking about helps set you apart in so many ways.
yeah, it commoditizes your service. So
It's good.
commoditizing meaning, you know, if you're buying pork bellies or oil futures, it doesn't matter who's selling you the pork
Hmm.
bellies, because that guy's pork belly is the same as that guy's pork, but they're all basically the same. If you go to a grocery store and you go to the bread aisle, there are like so many. And just think about this next time you go to the grocery store, there's so many brands of bread. There's just lots. And the main stretch at like a grocery store, it'll have, dozens and dozens of types of bread. And there's very little variance in price. It might go from, a dollar up to $5, something like that. But what's interesting is usually in a different part of the store, they'll have like the artisan bread section,
Mm.
maybe by the deli or something, bakery or something, and that bread might cost $15 for a single loaf. And that bread, not only does it cost 15 times more, but they don't even slice it. You got to slice it yourself, right? And it's in a brown bag. It's like this lumpy, weird shape. And what you're doing on the phone is you're making it clear in a friendly, warm way. Oh, we're not on the bread aisle. We're the
Mm,
ones over there. That's the kind we are. And what that does is it decommoditizes you. Because
yeah.
I know for me, when I shop, I want to get thing, leave store fast, right? Get thing I need, leave. So I'm looking at white bread, white bread, white bread. I just don't care. I grab one because it's like all the same. And people they treat their service company like that on accident. You're not a commodity.
Mm,
You're the only in the one in the world that's you. You do it a certain way. There's more proprietized parts to how you do business, but you don't give yourself enough credit. We got to use good languaging. We got to use enthusiasm. Um, all of it matters. And what's really interesting is even applying the stuff we're talking about kind of like poorly, sometimes it can double your average ticket. It can double for real the amount of profit you get to keep by
mm.
adjusting your choreography, by following up, being faster, being warmer, right? These little things move the needle in your bank account like really quickly, and they don't cost any money. We don't have to give Mark Zuckerberg a penny for any of the stuff that we just talked about. You could just start
Yeah.
doing it.
You're right. And I think even everything we're saying is so true for the home service industry specific too, because there are a few other industries where you are going to be welcoming a stranger technically in your home or around your safe space, right? Like the place we go home at night to rest, that we keep our family safe in. We're keeping, these people here in front of our home. So if there's ever an industry where you really should not look at it as a commodity, but more of like a partnership and a relationship, it is those home service industries. Because like you're inviting this random company and strangers into your home, and if you're just asking how many bedrooms and bathrooms you have and you're just giving them a quick number, I don't feel like I'm going to be welcoming you into my home. I want to know more about you. I want to know that elevator pitch that you were saying. So in this home service industry, these things matter even more than other industries.
Well, if the example that you were using about how many bedrooms, that's probably for a maid service, right?
Correct.
So
Yes.
a maid service, a lot of owners don't understand the lifetime value of a maid service client is in the neighborhood of $15,000. Nationwide, it depends on what part of the country you're in. We have hundreds of maid services that use our softwares and stuff, and I'm a dork
Hmm.
nerd. But $3,000 to $4,000 per year per client, average lifetime value of at least 5 years. It's like 15, 20 plus thousand a year. And the way we handle these calls is we handle it like it's a $300 opportunity, but really it's a
Yep.
$15,000 opportunity. And we just forget. We're busy, we're stressed. The dog pooped on the floor, your kid threw up last night, you didn't get any sleep, your technician didn't show up. I completely get it, but we got to hold the pose on the phone, and we got to play a character on the phone to set the table, because there's three ways service businesses get paid. They get today money, they get tomorrow money, and they get the big money. I call it present bank, future bank, big bank. So that first cleaning, there's a little bit of money. Congratulations, pay your light bill and pay your technician. But then there's upsells, cross sells, referrals, lifetime value. It's like big. And then
Hmm.
big bank is the enterprise value of your company, and when you scale, you can get a multi-million-dollar check one day because you scaled correctly. Um, I've probably helped 50 businesses exit their company, and it's amazing, right? But the only way they're able to do that is if they have a really profitable, good choreography when it comes to their sales process.
I love how you call it choreography because it's so true. And you're 100% right. I mean, a cleaning company or any home service that, I mean, lawn and landscape can be similar to that. We're talking like lifetime value of a customer. I mean, you're saying $15,000. I've heard a little less, a little more, depending on which study. Um, but we're talking like an amount of money you could buy a car with. Like these are not small purchases that we're talking about, our opportunities there. But yet, and this goes into my next question, a lot of home service companies, the person we're giving those sales opportunities to is also the person that might just be working behind the desk, or making copies or like doing bookkeeping and things like that. So my next question is, in your opinion, what in the home service world specifically, what's the difference between a good salesperson and a salesperson, or a great salesperson? What's the gap there that you see?
Probably speed, learning how to listen, because everyone thinks they listen, but almost no one actually listens. Okay, so speed, listening, and then follow up. That's like the whole thing. Okay, like if you're a
Yeah.
genuine human being and you're prompt and you really listen. They've done studies, for example, with waitresses, that where, if a server at a restaurant repeats your order back to you exactly as you said it, the tip goes up a lot. I forget the percentage,
Mm,
but it's like a lot. And what does that mean? What it means is I order at the restaurant, yeah, I'd like a bacon cheeseburger, but only ketchup. I don't like mustard, only ketchup. And the waitress says, bacon cheeseburger, ketchup. Okay. And for you, ma'am, that lady didn't repeat back what I said. She repeated
mhm,
back 80% of what I said, but she didn't exact. So if she says, okay, so you want the bacon cheeseburger, just ketchup, mustard's gross, we're only doing the ketchup, right? Got it. Okay. And for you, ma'am, she does that, automatically makes more money,
mm.
automatically. And I can do this all day. It's choreography,
Oh, yeah.
because us as owners of businesses, we're like choir directors, and it's really cool to do it because we're not manipulating and tricking people. All we're doing is controlling the controllables of how do we up level how we do the things that we already do all day every day, because we can just do them slightly better, and then next week do them slightly better, and eventually you just make more money than other people. I mean, the
Mm,
goal should be, when your quote is $300 in the higher than the other guys, what you want to happen, if you've done this correctly, is you want the customer to be pleasantly surprised you were only $300 more. That's like the
mm,
perfect way to do it. So they're like, oh, thank God. I thought they were going to be like five, six, seven, $800 more. Oh, this is a good deal. You want the homeowner to be nervous to hire the
mm,
other guy. And if she does, then that's okay, because those people will always exist. But that's good choreography. How do you plant seeds of doubt? How do you price anchor people? How do you build rapport and remember their dog's name Fluffy? A good salesperson, a great salesperson remembers that the dog's name is Fluffy because it's documented in the CRM. A good salesperson realizes that sales is serving. And so following up with your
mm,
customers to rebook them is not bugging them. It's literally an act of service, especially if you have affluent customers. I just got my hair cut before this interview. My hair person comes to our house because it saves me time and it's super convenient. My kids and everyone will get their hair cut. I don't care if she gives me a 10% off coupon. I just want
mm,
speed. I want convenience. I want it to happen, right? Now, if she reached out to me in 4 weeks from now and sent me a text and said, hey, want me to come back? We'll get that haircut again. I can do Monday. Do you want mornings or afternoons? If she did that, I would just say, okay. She doesn't do that. I'm trying to coach her through it. I'm like, do you hate money? How come you wait for me to reach out to you? Just come back over here, schedule it, right? So a great salesperson realizes selling is serving. Like, I would be grateful that she took the initiative to do that. I'm happy to give her more money. She can double my lifetime value if she gets me to cut my hair once a month instead of once every 2 months, which is usually what I do
mhm.
when it's left up to me, right? So sales is active listening, understanding your client, speed to lead, and warm but thorough follow up.
I mean, theatrics is, I mean, but not in like a slimy way. I mean, you're putting on a show almost, like people
You
want to be
are.
entertained,
You are.
and there's a way to be entertaining without being that classic like slimy
Yeah. Russell
salesperson.
Brunson calls it
Um,
calls it a dramatic demonstration, if you've ever heard him talk
yeah,
about that. Like
because
I
you're right. I mean,
had
I'm thinking the waiter or waitress example is a great one, but I'm trying to think back like some of the best restaurant experience I've had. I thought I got dinner in a show because like the server we had, they weren't just serving what we ordered, they were serving themselves in like a fun, entertaining way. And you're right,
yeah.
that is what leads to people having a better experience. You make it easy to spend your money with them because you're like, I feel like I'm getting more than what I'm paying for. I love that mindset shift you talked about too, where it should be a goal of ours to our customers feel like they're getting a deal that we're only $300 more than our competition. That's such a like a little mindset shift, because a lot of people are like, oh, I have to price match. I have to be lower, but like the idea of like build such a company that is such full of value that people think they're getting a deal even when you cost more. Like that little
Yeah.
switch could make a huge difference for somebody.
Yeah. If I gave you a free car, would you rather have, or let me do it like this. If you were going to spend $50,000 on a car, and one is a Kia, a really nice Kia SUV, and one's a Lamborghini, which one are you going to buy? And so you got to understand there's two sides to the ledger in life. And
Mm,
affluent, wealthy people understand that there's two sides. Poor people only look at one side. People with a poor mindset, and they usually struggle financially, they only look at what something costs them, and they neglect and overlook and disregard what they get. What you should be asking yourself is, what is something worth, right? So if you're selling to the affluent, which I highly recommend, especially in tumultuous economic times, because the economic ebbs and flows don't affect wealthy people the same way as it does everyone else. But when you're doing that, your choreography on the phone and your sales process, what that's doing is it's painting a picture for them on what you are worth. It's pulling it up. It feels like you're worth this. You're feeling kind of Lamborghini-ish, right? You feel it, and the other people feel like a Kia. So then we get back to price. I mean, if the Lamborghini was 70,000 instead of 50, you'd still buy that because it's worth a minimum of 350,000, right? You'd call grandma and borrow money and you'd find a way, right? Because there's
yeah,
what you pay, but then there's what you get. And so choreography helps paint a picture in the mind's eye of our customer of what they're going to get.
I love that. So, all right. So I did some research. I was watching some of your content before we filmed this today, and I know your first window cleaning company up in Michigan that you sold a big way, and you referenced this earlier. A big way that you were able to grow that business is through customer referrals, and everybody knows that closing a sale from a referral is so much easier, quicker, faster, probably get more profit off of it as well than closing someone from like a cold lead. Talk us through your mindset on referrals and maybe like some practical things a home service company could do to start getting more of them, and not just getting more of them, but how to turn them into more business.
Yeah, referrals are awesome. Usually referrals give you a higher close rate, a higher average ticket. There's less buying resistance. And people don't know this, but refer people that were referred to you are slightly more likely to refer people to you. So it's like referrals have babies kind of
Mm.
thing. It's really awesome.
The
Um,
ripple effect of it. Yeah.
it is. It's a big deal. And it sounds like this boring word, People are like, oh yeah, I get referrals, blah, 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 referrals. No, no, no. Like the iPhone got big because of referral. Like when you give someone an experience that's truly remarkable, people want to talk about it. And the reason
Mm.
people told you they had an iPhone is to make themselves look good. It's a status thing, right? We want to be the person that discovered the super awesome company. We want to tell our friends, you've got to go here to try this restaurant because it's amazing. Because now I'm the person that introduced them to
Yeah.
it. Steve Jobs didn't have a 10% off coupon for referrals. He didn't need to. He changed the world with a touch phone thing, right? And so our business is kind of like that. It's really easy to multiply your referrals. The first thing you got to do is you have to ask a lot of times. So we
Mm.
went from asking kind of whenever we thought of it to asking 6 specific distinct times throughout the customer life cycle. And it 10x the amount of real number, 10 times the amount of referrals we got just because we asked 6 times. We asked for referrals before they even hired us. We asked when they called
Mm.
for an estimate for it was a soft referral ask, and we used a particular script each time, and we just got more because your customers totally want to refer you. They just forgot. They're
Yeah.
busy and they have soccer practice and like there's
Yeah.
stuff in there going on and they don't care about your thing. But when you ask them the right way at the right time, you'll get more of them. Uh, Basically, the simple script we used was something along the lines of, you know, here, let me back up. Ask for referrals directly after the customer acknowledges that they are happy with you. So, for example, when
Mm.
they're calling for an estimate, okay, so I got your estimate scheduled for tomorrow. Have I met your need? Did I meet or exceed your expectations today? Yeah. Oh, perfect. Hey, real quick before I let you go, can you do us a favor? That's the first line. Can you do us a favor? We're a small family owned company. We rely on referrals from good people like you. So if you have a crazy neighbor or a weird uncle and they have dirty stuff and they need it clean, can you keep us in mind? That would mean a lot to us. And that was the script. And so it's warm and it was
Yeah.
choreographed. So when the technicians would do the work, at the end of the job, they'd walk around at the client and they would say, "Did we meet or exceed your expectations today?" "Yeah, it looks great, Ryan. You did great." "Oh, perfect. Hey, can you do us a favor? We're a small family company. We really rely on referrals from people like you. If you have any weird relatives that need anything, please keep us in mind. Even better, tell them my name and ask for me, and I'll get a small bonus for my company." And then we'd ask 6 times throughout all of this process. That by itself will get you a lot. We have not because we ask not. But don't just
Mm.
ask in a clever way and ask directly after they just said you're awesome. So they just said you exceeded my expectations. You're amazing. Great. Can you do me a favor? It's a law of reciprocity and it just works. It's principle based.
Yeah, timing matters a lot, because a lot of times if we're asking for referrals once every quarter or 6 months, they could forget that they even used you. So you're right. Like the timing of that matters a whole bunch.
Yeah,
Love
and
that.
making it
Yeah.
easy for them too. There's a lot more you can do than that, but that's just to keep it simple. Social media is a good one. Just having them
Mm.
take a picture of their tech and you and tag the company in it. These guys did a great job. Um, th- that's it's a form of referrals just because you're using their social network, right, to get yourself in front of
Yeah.
their friend group. Um, and then, joint venture partnerships. When I think of the word referrals, the big money isn't even from your customers referring you. The big money is from strategic partnerships. And most small businesses don't do enough of that. They're not friendly enough. They're scared to reach out to their
Mm.
non-competing service companies. But if you have a maid service and someone else is cleaning carpet, this is like a match made in heaven. There's a ton of things that we can do for free to just give free money to each other. And
Mm.
if you take initiative, you could set up 10 or 15 people in your town uh, and formally refer stuff to each other all the time. You can interview each other on each other's Facebook Live. It's called an interview swap, right? You can do an email swap. If a carpet cleaner emails his people and says, "Hey, a lot of people ask us about maid service. These guys are the best. Here's a foot in the door offer." It works. Have them do it, right? You can do web page swaps. If I
Mm.
type to get an estimate on the carpet cleaning's website and I click submit, where's the thank you page I land? I'm on the carpet cleaner's website. It just says, "Thank you. We'll get your estimate." Why is there not a clickable foot in the door offer for the maid service on that
Love
page?
that.
There's so many ways to get more traffic from people that are in the right state that already want to buy. You can borrow other people's authority and trust and make a lot of money.
I love that. Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes either our egos get in the way or we're scarcity mindset stops us from talking to other companies that are in no way competing with us, but it stops us from making those connections. And that could be a huge thing. But once again, you referenced charisma, like that you were running through that script, like post service, as the kids say. Joshua, you had some riz going on there. Like, hey, did we meet all your expectations? Right. Oh, that's so good to hear. I love that. We're a small family. I mean, all of that, we're putting on a show. Like we're having that charisma to make them feel confident in us, and like they're getting more than just window cleaning. They're getting more than power washing, whatever we're doing for them. They're getting good people around them that are making them feel good. They're making them feel positive. And that attitude and that charisma goes a long way. I love that. Yeah. Well,
It
referrals are
does.
huge. Yeah. And you're right. And they make referrals are just one of those things. They make everything else easier. It makes the sales process easier. It makes the actual service part easier because they feel like they know you before you even show up. And that makes a big difference. So, all right.
That's
One
right.
of the last things I want to talk about, we're running out a little bit of time today. We got a little bit more, but the last thing I want to talk about, I know you talk a lot about the knowing and doing gap. And like that is one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs like really holds them back. We spend so much time listening to, I don't know, podcasts like this or, other podcasts that are out there. We're surrounded by content more than we ever have been in our world, that sometimes we spend more time knowing and not enough time doing. So one of the things I really want to talk about on this podcast series is everybody can walk away, because there's been a lot of conversations. There's been so many good little nuggets just in this conversation today. But I want people to walk away with one thing that in the next 15 minutes after listening to this, they can implement and change. Because I want them to be knowing and doing if they're listening to this content. What is one thing a business owner in this, home service world can do today in the next 15 minutes that's going to help their business start being better at sales, closing more leads, increasing their profit margins, all the things that we've talked about today. What is one thing somebody can do quickly after listening to this episode that you think possibly they're not doing yet?
I'll give you an acronym that's a really big deal. It's very simple, but it's a big, big, big deal. And if you can remember this, and if you can start to think through the lens of this acronym I'm going to give you, you will make way more money forever. Um, these people that pay me a lot to help them with stuff, this is the core framework I'm actually using to help make a business an extra $1 million. Like quick. And this is before even advertising or spending money on agency, anything, right? We have to understand the acronym FRAP, FRAP, FRAP. Okay. So if there's one thing you're going to do, I want you to chew on and think about this, and I'll give you some practical tips for each part. So the F is for frequency. If I have a small company that comes into our world and they're like, I need money, what do I do? We instantly, the first low hanging fruit thing we do is we just market hard to all of the people that are due for another service that we haven't seen in a long time. We do that through
Mm,
what's called a Rainmaker campaign. And it's pretty simple. It's a series of emails, a series of phone calls, and a series of text messages compressed into 3 days. And it's pretty normal for people to do 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 in revenue real fast. That's frequency. What we're doing is we're proactively getting people to buy our stuff more often than they would have if we were not proactive, right? How can you manipulate how often people buy from you? That's question number one. The second one is referrals. We already kind of covered that, but it's how do I set up strategic
mhm,
joint venture partnerships with just one client? Imagine you get 2 leads a month. That's like nothing. But if you get 10
mm,
relationships like that, and each lead is worth $15,000 to you, and you get 20 of them a month, that's 300,000 a month in lifetime value for free, right? So that's R, referrals. Then you have A, which is average ticket price or average order value. The way that you get your average ticket price to go up is through improving your choreography, getting better at cross-selling, upselling. Those are not the same thing, but they're similar. And then having a high ticket offer, a decoy offer.
mm,
If the most expensive thing you sell is $1,000, we need to create a package that's $3,000 just so it exists. Even if no
mm,
one bought it, it needs to exist because two things are going to happen. It's going to make your $1,000 package look better, and somebody is going to buy the $3,000 package, and all of that bumps your average ticket up. And then the P in FRAP is for pricing. There's 4 different ways you can manipulate pricing. Most people only think of one. But price is the single biggest needle mover for take home profit out of everything else.
mm,
You want to double the take home profit that you make, you have to get good at manipulating price. I'll give you one example: supply and demand pricing. So
mm,
most local businesses have a static pricing matrix or structure, right? They're like so much per square foot, so much per linear foot, so many price per room, however they do it. That price should not, it cannot, unless you're trying to run a nonprofit on accident. Okay. If you want to make money, your price has to float with supply and demand, just like every other industry does. But we don't think about it. And so a small company will get booked out like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And they wear that like a badge of honor because it feels like a
mm,
security blanket, like, oh, it's busy season, I'm booked out. What they don't understand on the back end of that, though, is how much money, enormous, gigantic amounts of money are being lost through that scarcity orphan mindset of them just keeping the price the same and scheduling out. No, 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 no. When demand goes up, our price floats.
yeah,
We're always looking at capacity, making sure we're actually booking work. Just that one move can double the take home profit of a typical business owner. So just remember FRAP: frequency, referrals, average ticket, and price. If you get that right, advertising becomes free. Most people
mm,
want to reduce the cost of advertising, and they're trying to solve the wrong problem. We need to make our customers worth more money, not worry about reducing the cost of advertising. That goes back to Dan Kennedy, right? If you're a marketer, you have to know Dan Kennedy, right?
mhm,
So, the goal isn't to lower the cost of advertising. It's how do we make our customers more valuable to us?
100%. Yeah. I'm also a big believer of a lot of people that want to lower the cost of advertising are in no way evaluating if it's working or not. And they haven't built a system or ways to see what kind of ROI they're actually getting from it. So something we try to help out with. Awesome. That is so good. FRAP. I want to hear the stories from people that listen to this or watch this podcast on how they start, implementing that and seeing the changes as quickly as possible. All right, before we end every one of these episodes, I'm going to play a fun would you rather game with all of our guests, and it's would you rather sales edition. I think it'd be fun. So I've come up with a lot of them. I'm going to ask each guest one, and this is what we'll end on today. Ready? Would
Yep.
you rather be forced to sell door to door for the rest of your career, or only be able to sell via cold calls with a bad cellular connection?
Ooh, I was gonna pick cold
It's
calls
tough.
hands down, but the bad cellular connection makes it tough. I
It
would still
does.
choose the bad cellular connection. I would cold call. I think there's more leverage in it. I can do more volume of it. I
Hmm.
can expand my market beyond where my feet are at, and I'll just have to fight through the bad connection somehow.
Love
I'm
that.
not sure how I do
Hey,
that, but
you did today in northern Michigan with Starlink. You mean you're
right,
you're
yeah.
working on that
Woo.
already. Love that. Love that. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, that is a wrap for today's episode. I hope it took you away some real valuable information and insights to help you close more deals in your home service business. As always, we say the best market in the world doesn't mean anything if there's no one there to seal the deal. Sales is that final door of our 5 door strategy that you guys have heard us talk about. And with Joshua's, awesome insights, you guys should be able to walk away with some great knowledge. Joshua, thanks for being here today. Thank you so much for giving your time up. Before we wrap up, how can people connect with you?
You want to connect with us? Just go to warplan.com. We're not
Boom, simple.
Yeah, warplan.com. That's where everything is that we have.
Awesome. Well, make sure to check that out. Once again, thanks for being here, Josh. And make sure to stay tuned. We've got a lot of these episodes of this sales podcast series that we're doing here at Larison Media. And if you ever want to find out more about what we do, just make sure to go to larisonmedia.com and we're there to help you as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. Josh, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.